Hello, my name is Animus of va.games. Last week, the Mercenaries debuted on the Battlefield 3 competitive scene in a game against the 116th Cavalry Brigade combat team led by General Caesar. This video is the extra bonus round that we had played against the 116th since we all felt that the war was over a little too quickly. As this was our first competitive game, there was a lot of things that just didn't go quite as smoothly as they probably could have. Even though we had set this date at least 2 weeks in advance, and even though I had 12 players volunteer to be on the team, I still couldn't field an entire team of 12 people. In the 30 minutes leading up to the start of the game alone, our team shuffled vehemently between 10 and 12 players before finally settling on 11, which forced us to play our first competitive game a man down. Without going into too much detail, 3 of our guys couldn't make it. We had 4 reserves, but space enough only for 3, and 2 of those 4 were in a pair, such that one would not play without the other. We ended up losing both, which left us with a final count of 11. Since we had previously agreed that the match would be 12 on 12, it was then my responsibility to make sure that the Mercs had a full team. Having failed that, I was prepared to accept the consequences of having to play with the disadvantage of not having a full team. We were also unprepared for the complicated logistics of just getting the game started. Caesar was unable to make use of the battle log match feature, which would have allowed both teams ample time to get into the server, form their squads, and make final loadout preparations before the actual game would begin. Without that feature, the match started the moment 12 people had logged onto the server. Although Merc was able to get fully into the game and onto the field within a matter of seconds, the 116th struggled to get the last members of their team into the server. The end result of this was a false start. By the time the 116th had met us in the field, Merc had captured all of the objectives, bled them of at least 25 tickets, and set up sturdy defensive formations. It took less than 7 minutes to end the game once it had started, and it was so confused and unsynchronized that Caesar and I had decided that it would be best to disregard the first game entirely. As a result, I will not be posting that game to my channel. The next 2 matches went very well indeed. I had implemented a prototype of what I call a modular command structure, and it appeared to be both highly effective and well received. I had used my experience with object-oriented programming languages like C++ to visualize our full team of 12 as 3 independent squads of 4, which would be analogous to C++ classes, complete with its own members and functions. I'll be leading Squad Alpha, which will consist of myself, a helicopter co-pilot, and 2 jet pilots for a standard game of full-size Conquest. I've already promoted the almighty Cameron to the rank of Colonel and put him in charge of Squad Bravo, but I have not yet appointed a definitive leader for Squad Charlie at this time. Each squad will exist and operate independently of the other almost as a sort of 4-man clan within our clan. Squad leaders will then have the freedom to fill their own squad with whatever Merc players they choose that volunteer for the position, and coordinate those players as they see fit. When an opportunity to play against another platoon comes around, I will approach my squad leaders to come up with an acceptable date for the game. At that point, it'll be the responsibility of each squad leader to show up on the date of the battle with their full squad ready to play. They will exist and operate independently of my influence, so long as they adhere to Merc guidelines and principles of fair play. The goal is to have a designated team attributed to each squad leader such that the leader can drop or add players at their discretion depending on availability, talent, and cooperation. The goal of this structure is to have each squad exist like a professional sports team, with other members of the platoon applying for a position on the first-string competitive team by trying to earn a place on one of its squads. When it comes to matches, I will formulate a general strategy and outline objectives to be carried out by each squad. Traditionally, the term objective in the context of Battlefield refers to the checkpoints in game types like Conquest and Rush, but in the context of strategy, I mean to say objectives like mission goals. I'll go over the basics of the battle and show my squad leaders not only what they can expect from the enemy, but also what I expect of them. They then have the freedom to use their creativity to approach their unique goals in whatever way they feel will help them be successful. Squad leaders will be ultimately responsible for both the successes and the failures of their squad. If their squad performs poorly in a game, it would then be the leader's job to identify the complication and correct it, either through training or by replacing the player on the squad for the next game. We can replace squad leaders too if they regularly fail to meet expectations. Our modular command structure will be beneficial in the following ways. It'll give our squad leaders a chance to explore their leadership skills by managing their own squad according to their own will independently of my guidance. It'll also allow our platoon to regulate its members and maintain a compartmentalized competitive team that can be more effectively trained and more quickly readied for future matches. It also establishes cohesive units of multiple players that can be specialized for complicated or difficult tasks. It allows the platoon the advantage of breaking down the bigger problems associated with fighting a strong opponent into smaller and more manageable problems. Unfortunately, such an infrastructure apparently couldn't save us from this savaging. I hadn't communicated the spur-of-the-moment intention to play a final round with the rest of my team, so the squads were in a state of chaos and confusion by the time the game had started. Moneymaker had lost connection to the game fairly early on, and that left Squad Charlie without its leader, and the team was another man down. Caesar definitely learned very quickly from the last 3 matches that we had played against him, and he took us to task this time around. He had his team suppress our air force brutally and without interruption, so despite our best efforts, we were unable to break the cycle and recover, so we ended up on the receiving end of a very sound thrashing as a result. I hope that we can use this negative experience to build up and conceal our weaknesses for future matches, and hope that Caesar and the 1/16th will return to our server again for more games, perhaps in new maps and with different modes and with different settings. I think we can all agree that increased ticket rates for such games would be in order as well. If you lead or are part of a clan that still plays Battlefield 3, congratulations, you're one of a few. Please send me a message or leave a comment here so that we can set up some games and have a good time. I want to thank Caesar and the 1/16th for being good sports and having a good set of games with us, and as always, thanks for watching.